Pull up those socks, straighten that headband. You are listening to the CHGO Marathon, a podcast for the community, culture, and challenge that surround the world's fourth largest marathon here in the greatest city in the world. CHGO Marathon is brought to you by Goose Island, the official beer of CHGO, and the beer you receive once you cross that finish line. They don't taste any better than that. Find one of their Chicago locations at gooseisland.com/locations. What's up, everyone? Welcome back. I am Kevin Kaduk, head of content at CHGO and a first-time entrant in the Chicago Marathon. This week, I'm joined by Jared Wyllys of CHGO Baseball. He's making his second appearance here on the show. Welcome back, Jared.
Good to be back.
You're also in the same boat. You're a first-time entrant.
First-timer.
We're 12 weeks away, kind of crazy. Behind the board, as always, is producer Sarah Fichter. What's up, Sarah?
Hello, hello. We're back.
We are back.
Yeah, another day.
Yeah. If you didn't check out last week's episode, I would say definitely go back and listen to that one after you listen to this one because it was a lot of fun. Michael Ko, a.k.a. Kofuzi from YouTube, was here, and he broke down a lot of good stuff. I mean, he's one of the biggest running guys on YouTube, and I had a great time talking with him for about 45 minutes. I talked with him for about another 45 after we went off the air. I wish we had been taping on that, Jared, because we talked a lot about just the YouTube strategy and things like that may have been interesting to maybe you and I and maybe another subset of people, but
right.
It was fun. So
good conversation.
Yeah. Hey, if you're not following us on Twitter, make sure you do that at CHGO_marathon. Leave us a great review. We're still trying to get our name out there, trying to get that traffic machine rolling a little bit, and I think it will as we get closer to the race.
Yeah,
I don't know if people are totally into it. I think we're getting into like the real training, but we're trying to find other marathon runners. So if you know someone who's training for the marathon and would like this, please share that. And
this does seem like the time when it's on people's radar a little more.
Yeah.
So if you're training, this is when the runs start to get serious. And even if you're not running the marathon, I think, you're not necessarily thinking about it quite yet, but hopefully as we get closer,
absolutely.
I was gonna say, if you're not training now for the marathon,
then maybe shoot for next year.
Yeah. It's not.
My
good.
wife was like, "Don't you feel like the marathon's almost here?" I'm like, "Yes, but also it's still like 3 months away."
You said October,
Yeah.
right?
October 8th.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's coming up. Honestly, it's almost football season too. So
It
that's
is.
when it's coming
I mean,
up.
once we get down that chute, it's going to come out real quick, but I still have my app on my phone. Like I go to my home screen and I have one of those countdown apps, and it's still a healthy distance away. It's not
right
triple digits anymore. It started off when I first put it on there, it was like 240 days away. That was like a lifetime away. Now it's like, what is it? 84 days?
Yeah. It
81 days.
Yeah. It starts to, as I start looking at like the running schedule,
yeah,
and some of these, like we mentioned, some of these longer runs coming up, that's when it feels closest to me, is when I'm starting to think about like, hey, I should, going out on a 12-mile run is a much bigger deal than like I'm going to do 5 today or whatever. There's a little more planning and prep, before something like that. So that's when I'm thinking about that. That's when the race feels a lot closer. But then when I think about how many more of these like long training runs,
there's still a lot to go.
There's a lot.
There's still 2 20-milers left. I mean, several, double digits smaller than that, but not anything easy just to rip off. Like stuff that's going to take planning and a little bit of mental fortitude.
Because that's when you enter into different territory when you're like, I have to plan in advance for this. I have to think about like what I do the day before.
What you eat.
Yeah. What did I
How you
eat?
sleep.
How much water did I drink? How's my sleep? Cause it's one thing, to just get up and rattle off 3-4 miles or something, but
Right.
yeah, it's
I'll just have a granola bar.
right. Like that's not such a big deal. But yeah, you enter into those longer runs differently.
Well, we're going to talk about getting ready for some of these bigger mileage runs and how we're doing that a little later in the show. Also going to talk about a new pair of shoes that I picked up thanks to both Kofuzi's recommendation and a vote of confidence from one of our listeners. So I appreciate that. And we're going to talk about overcoming obstacles that come with summer training, because the summer's a busy time. There's heat. There's weather, there's air quality, there's vacations. So we're going to talk a little bit about that, how people get past some of their obstacles. First, though, Sarah, you and I had a great race on Saturday.
Yeah. Here, I'll pop it up right here. We did the, what was it? Just us three. It was Nick, Kevin, and I did the Big 10K, and we all finished. Yeah, we all did it, and it was so much fun. Yeah, we got to meet some of our mascots, and it was my first time ever doing anything like this, so it was super fun to me. And yeah, I know you guys had better times than me, so
It was fine. It was fine. So we actually
good,
saw
though.
each other out on the course, and you ran up from behind me. So I'm not
Yeah.
exactly how that worked.
Well, I saw you, and so I saw you running, and I know how you run. You run with a headband,
Yeah.
and so I always knew that. And then I knew you were Wisconsin, and I don't know, you're tall, and so I was like, oh,
I did stand out there,
Yeah,
yeah.
I was like, oh, that's Kevin, because I see Kevin 3-4 times a week, and so I'm like, oh, I know. So I run up to him, and I'm like, hey, I'm like, how's it going?
We did get a picture out there, which was a lot of fun.
Yeah. No, it was a good time. And then I asked, I was like, where's Nick? And you're like, oh, he's up there. I was like,
Yeah.
I'm not catching up to him.
It worked out great for marathon training because my long run for this week called for 7 miles.
Yeah.
This was 6.2. So between walking to and from parking on Michigan Avenue to Soldier Field, which was like
The
3
whole
miles in
day,
itself.
before noon, I had over
was fine.
20,000 steps
There you
before
go.
noon that day. And
Yeah.
I was like, all right, I'm done. Like, I'm done today. Like, I've done my
Yeah.
workout. Like, it's all good.
So like last week was a little bit of a step back week from mileage.
Yeah.
So I was like, I'm just going to have a lot of fun with this. I'm going to go out and run. This is not a race. If you're trying to get a great time, don't run this race, because there's 7,500 runners. They poop you out right onto the lakefront trail. There's not a lot of spot to pass people, particularly after a big rain. It had rained on Saturday morning. So if you did, you were running through mud on the spots that you could. So it was just like we set off, and I was like, all right, I'm just going to settle in and have fun. And, even when I saw Sarah out there, Sarah's just a tick slower than me, but it's like, all right, let's just run for, I think we ran for maybe half a mile, 3/4 of a mile together.
I think
and
we
then-
met up at like 4.5, or we met up towards the end.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah.
Which is kind of the point in the race when I imagine it's nice to have somebody to,
Yeah.
hey, let's talk for a half mile or
Yeah.
something.
So we were
Yeah.
actually out there, and I said, Sarah, I have a great idea for a social thing, and I think it's too late to do now, but we could talk about it on the show. I said, if the Big Ten mascots all raced, and it's pretty cool because all the mascots are out there. They're waving
Yeah.
to you as you take off. If the mascots were to race, who would win the 10K?
So, see, I don't know, because I can get biased then with like just the organizations in schools. I mean, of course, Sparty. I mean, he has, what is that, a 6-pack? Yeah, he has a 6-pack.
Yeah, so you
going.
were saying
Yeah.
you raced for Michigan State because that's where your family's from.
Yeah.
I said Sparty. It doesn't look like he's really into cardio. I don't think he's winning anything.
You know who actually I think would be really good is the Penn State mascot, because
The
he's
lion?
he's
The
so
lion, right.
slim, and and that was actually my first time seeing him in person, and so he's a slim mascot. And when I was watching the professional runners that were 30-40 minutes ahead of me during the Big 10K, I mean, they were very slim. Those people are slim, and so I'm like, okay, maybe we need like kind of smaller mascots. That
I think
win
you would have to go
that.
someone with a smaller head because
Yeah.
that would reduce drag.
Right. You
Right.
can't have
So-
like the big,
That's
the big
gonna-
head on there.
Right.
So that's going to take down guys like Herbie Husker. Bucky Badger. I don't know.
He's a big
I mean,
one.
Bucky Badger wins a lot of things. So I'm a little bit partial being a University of
I
Wisconsin
know
grad.
Nick did Iowa. I don't
Herky
think
the Hawkeye.
I don't
mean, he
think
could possibly conceivably fly.
yeah. If we want to go down that route, but
we're
he's a
talking
big
about,
guy
like,
too.
Like the mascots themselves or the the things or the people they represent. Because I'll take an actual Hawkeye,
right, because he could fly.
Yeah.
The guy that plays the Boilermaker, he's wearing shorts, so that might actually help because he'd probably stay able to stay cool. So.
And
Honestly,
I feel like for Sparty too, the gear that he's wearing that weighs you down a little bit. Like that's a serious helmet.
Yeah.
That's a serious helmet.
I feel like maybe bodybuilding's more his
Willie the
style.
Wildcat is a little similar to the Nittany Lion. Now I don't know if there's any hazing issues there with Willie the Wildcat. So
I don't know. I didn't see many.
Was he allowed to be there?
He was there. I did see Brutus Buckeye like kind of making fun of some Northwestern fans, and I didn't know if it was a reference to that. I don't want to sell out.
It's kind of
Brutus
bad
Buckeye,
timing.
but
It was
also
just bad timing for him to be out there.
Kind of was.
Yeah.
Not a great time for.
There was people out there
Northwestern
wearing
fans.
Northwestern shirts that said "Fire the president." Fire
Oh, I
shill.
didn't see that.
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay.
interesting.
There was also two girls who were running and representing USC, and I said, "You're out here two summers too early, but we appreciate the effort." So,
Nice. Yeah.
but also
Overall,
a few Rutgers people, but it was a great race.
Yeah.
I would encourage anyone to do it. I mean, it's a lot of fun. There was a tailgate party afterward. They had beer, they had free hot dogs, they had ice cream.
I think it's such a good idea too, because if you're like a first time marathon runner, then it's such a great thing to not only like you're running like 6.2 miles, so it's good training, but also you're getting in the environment. I feel like in general of like what even those races,
People around
and like
you,
what those kind of events.
I like
look
getting
like
up early,
and-
doing the just the routine, parking your car.
Yeah.
I think going through all of that is good experience to get before you go and do a big race like that. Go experience, even if it's a 5K, just to kind of get used to
the crowd and the environment
and what
all
it's
that.
like you said, when you start off and there's this big group of people and you're all sort of funneled into the same spot, and it can take sometimes a minute or two before you really get to get going. It's
going to be interesting. I mean, obviously the streets are bigger on the Chicago Marathon, right? And we've run half marathons down there before, so exactly what to expect. So
I have motivation now to do a half marathon.
Let's go.
I do. I am.
Yeah.
I'm kind of like, that's what I'm thinking.
If you can do a 10K, you can do a half marathon.
That's what I was thinking. I was thinking the same thing. I was like, if I could do that, just add on another 6-7 miles. And it's like, I feel like I could do that. So I got to look into that.
You definitely could.
Thank you.
All right, let's get into our first topic, and that's kind of something that's really top of mind and something that's been hindering me the past few weeks. And I know anyone who's running in the Chicago area, just kind of with this weather, there's been some bad air quality. The last 2 Wednesdays, I do the speed workouts on Wednesdays at the track, and I haven't made it there for 3 straight weeks because the first one I was coming back from vacation. And then it was also bad air quality, so I couldn't have made it out there anyway. 2 was really bad thunderstorms, didn't make it out. And then last week there was a tornado warning. So I've had to move some things around, but haven't really done I've increased my mileage, but I haven't done the speed stuff. I know that you just got back from vacation. So how have you handled the summer months? I mean, you're a dad and you have kids and they have needs and whatever. So how have you been handling this stuff?
Well, that's one of the biggest challenges is that, especially as you get into longer runs, the time commitment, because it does mean if I'm going to go out and do a 10-mile run or a 12-mile run, I'm going to be gone for a long time. And I like to, I get up early. I'm a morning runner all the time. I can't run during the day. I know some people, that's their preference, but I'm a morning guy for sure. But there's only so early that I can I can get up and do that. And
when you're talking about runs that are going to take 2.5 hours, it's
right.
still leaking into a good part of your day.
Yeah. And like you said, with kids, then I don't want to be for a big chunk of the morning when my wife's trying to work and my kids are still kind of young. So they're not fully independent. And so there's that factor. But then 2, having just had vacation, trying to figure out, well, yeah, I'm on vacation, but I can't just take a week off from running, or like really, really shouldn't, especially as a first timer, because I don't know how my body is going to respond as I go along. And so taking a week off completely just felt like, that's just, I can't do that. So I ran on vacation. I actually I logged quite a few miles. Some of that was just, I was up in Door County, Wisconsin, and it's just pretty up there. And so it sort of made it easy in a way, because it was like, it's just nice out here. So I got up and I ran, and I think the longest I went 6 miles twice. And then the last day, the day that we left, I ran 5 miles that morning.
Okay.
So I was trying to,
you were able to get out there. You weren't too tired from the night before or anything like that, or? Yeah,
not too bad. That's, I guess, in a way, that's one of the blessings of kids too, is, I'm not going to be out late doing anything crazy, because, it's just that's not my phase of life. But I was definitely slower than I might normally run. A little bit of, I don't have, like we talked about, maybe what I'm not eating as well the day before. I was on vacation, so I was, drinking a little more maybe than I normally would. Not drinking enough water. So then getting up the next day, you're not feeling quite the same.
Right.
So I was a little slower. But still, I kind of went into the week just thinking, I want to get some miles in, so I'm not falling too far behind. I was scheduled to do a 10-mile run that first weekend that I was there, and didn't end up doing that. And so my hope was to try to fill in some of those missing miles other days, and just, and get back on track.
Just get the volume.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I went to Michigan a couple weeks ago, in Saugatuck, and we weren't there for that long. So I was able to run like the Monday before we left, and then Tuesday try to figure out like a good spot. Now, you go up to some of these lake towns, and I get a little nervous running just on roads that are very close to the lake, and you've got people flying around. So like, I didn't really know where to run. I ended up doing a run up Mount Baldhead there, which was like, I don't know, 350 steps, something crazy. It's like an old radio tower, and then running down the sand dunes or whatever it is from there. And that was fun. And that kind of like was my workout for vacation. And then by the next day we were back, but I always get a little nervous because I'm somebody who likes to have a plan. I like to go out on the computer and map out the run and figure out where I'm going and sort of be familiar with things.
Yeah.
And you're not able to do that necessarily on vacation. You can kind of know, but you don't look at it, and you still don't quite understand, So it's fun to get out there, but at the same time, I kind of like just being familiar with things.
Yeah, that was a big part of it too. Because when I run at home, I know the routes for different distances. So if I'm going 6 miles or 8 miles at home, I know exactly what to do. Yeah, I just run this. I'm boring. I run the same thing every time. But yeah, up there, it helps that it's a place that we go to for vacation every year. So I know the area fairly well.
Sure.
But that's a thing that I had to consider, was like, okay, I want to do 6 miles today, but I don't really know if I try to take some loop somewhere. I don't really know how long it's going to take to come around that. And does my 6 miles turn into 7.5?
This lake doesn't look that far around.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. So I had to kind of account for, I'm just going to run down this road. And then when I get to a certain point, then just turn around and come back, just so I was, aware of how far I was going. But that's a factor for sure when you're in unfamiliar territory.
Routine is just so important. And I mean, that's kind of part of the reason why I want to sleep in my own bed the night before the race, because I just don't want to be in a weird hotel room the night before. And
right.
So, what else has kind of like been an obstacle for you over the summer? I mean, you're a teacher, so you have off, so that probably helps.
That helps quite a bit. But
you're still covering baseball, so
yeah. And that's like, for instance, this Saturday, I'm planning to do, a longer run, but then I'm covering a day game at Wrigley that day. So being there, in order to get into the clubhouse and all that, you have to get there kind of early, which means I need to leave my house pretty early. So speaking of getting up early in the morning, Saturday is going to be one of those days where the alarm's probably going off at like 5:30 or something, so I can get up and get those miles in. That's and then late. Be ready to
Come on, Jared, that's late.
Maybe we'll go 5. We'll see. But yeah, that's the challenge too, of balancing I have these, work still during the summer. And then when school does start again, then the schedule gets even tighter in figuring out when to log some of those miles. And I ran into the same thing as you did with some of the weather stuff, where when we had the air quality going on a few weeks ago, I was supposed to take a couple of runs that week and had to take like 2 days off because it was
you don't have a treadmill.
No treadmill.
I don't either.
So it was like, I just can't go.
Right.
And that was pretty frustrating because I felt like I'm just getting into where I really have to be taking this seriously. I can't be skipping stuff too much. So that was kind of frustrating, was feeling like the weather was interfering with what I knew I needed to do. So, thankfully though, this is wood, right? Is this wood behind us?
It is, I think.
Knock on wood.
Maybe particle board.
It hasn't, knock on particle board. It hasn't been too much of a factor. Particularly heat was something I was worried about. It being, bulkier training is July, and we're not even into August yet, which it could
probably going to be the worst.
That's when it's going to be the worst. But
I don't know if you listened last week. I asked Kofuzi, what did you think? What do you think the weather's going to be like? And he said he thinks the marathon's going to be hot. I said, don't you say that.
See, I want it to be like 55.
Of course
it's
you do.
October,
Of course everyone does.
How hot can it get in October?
It can get hot.
It can get pretty hot, yeah.
They pulled everyone off the course in like 2007. It was like 87 degrees.
Oh, did
That's
they
what
really?
I'm afraid of is
it's not good.
one of those just freak hot days where they have to shut it down.
2021 was real hot, and then 2022 was just like
Well, the weather this year too, it's I mean, I still think it's funny the fact that normally you'd want to worry about heat or rain, but we're worrying about air quality and tornadoes and fires.
Right. It just feels
what?
it's just been super weird. I mean, with the
weird
storms
year.
and it just hasn't been us in Chicago. It's been like all over.
Keeps us on our toes though.
Yeah,
True.
Yeah, and I'm in a couple different Facebook groups of Chicago Marathon trainers, and people are all over the world training, all over Europe and South America, and I have no idea how people train for fall marathons when they live in Texas or Florida. You see people out there I have zero clue.
Even in Europe right now, like Italy is having record-breaking heat waves. Yeah, they're in like the 90s, 100s, and they don't have air conditioning either, really. It's not like common for people to have. So it's like you think about like some people are just like really
this week has been awesome. In the morning, it's been nice and cool.
Yeah.
It's been getting, I don't know if you've noticed, it's been a little darker when you get up in so I'm sure as we go forward, I like to start running at like 5 o'clock, 4:45, somewhere in that area. It's probably gonna be pitch black. I'm gonna have to get one of those like headlamps. So.
I've done that. I do the like when school starts. Some of the shorter runs I'll have to run at like 4:35 in the morning. So I have a reflective vest. That
way to do it.
Yeah, because you'd be some mornings I'm surprised at how many cars are out at like it's 4:52 a.m. What are you doing?
Going to work.
You're going, but you gotta be ready for that.
Yeah. So I put out a call on CHGO Marathon on Twitter of what people have been overcoming obstacles for, and we got a few responses. First one is from Jessica Knoll, who has been an early supporter of CHGO Marathon. What's up, Jessica? She says that her obstacle has been reestablishing the right shoes for training. The newest version of my old shoe wasn't quite right. And she also had a fun sciatica flare-up. Thank goodness for turmeric shots. So got to get past that. Thanks for chiming in, Jessica. Also had one from, who's next here? Joe Gallagher. He said morning runs before work. My wife asked me the other morning, like, are you getting up and running? I said, of course. This marathon's not going to run itself. You got to get that mileage up. I've actually gone from the training plan I was doing, and we talked about this early. The easy runs were 3 miles. I've bumped it up to 5.
Yeah.
I just kind of feel like, and it still calls for 3 miles, but I'm like, I just want to get more mileage in. I feel like 3 just isn't enough in the morning. 5 is a good 45 minutes of getting going and working through some pacing stuff. So, I mean, by the time you get started on a 3, you're already done. So
that is true. I mean, that's still been sort of my standard kind of base. I did 3 this morning, but it does feel like my thing is I always feel like I don't really get my legs under me until almost 2 miles in.
Right.
The first mile and 3/4, I still feel like I'm like getting going. And then, yeah, it does feel 3 miles feels like, oh, I'm just starting to feel it. And then now I'm done.
Yeah, so definitely did that. Then also had a response on Facebook, one more from, I think, Casey Higginbotham Kell. She said, some intense sunshine. I'm lucky that the heat isn't as bad as lots of the United States, but I've had a few days where I've been running in 90-degree heat, which is no fun. But summer training leads to fall PRs, right? That's exactly the right way to look at it, Casey.
We hope.
So, yeah, for sure. There's going to be lots of obstacles. I mean, we haven't even gotten into injuries. I hope we won't get into. I feel like I've done a good job rolling and stretching and strength training.
That's honestly my biggest fear of everything. I know for me, I broke my foot a couple years ago, and I have had constant problems with it since then. I broke like 4 bones in my left foot my freshman year.
How'd you do that?
I fell down some stairs freshman year of college. But anyways, besides that, it was, no, that's definitely, and I noticed it even at the Big 10K, like me doing 6 miles, like my ankle starts to like get swollen, and I feel like right where I hurt my foot. And so that's why those are challenges. Like if I'm ever to do a half marathon or a marathon, it's like, I got to like figure out a way to overcome those kind of arthritis issues or like something like that. And I'm only 23 and I have like all these ankle foot issues, but like, no, there's some people that like,
they're real.
They're like, they need to figure it out. I don't know. It's definitely a challenge to overcome.
Absolutely.
And it's a fear to then re-injure yourself. And then what do you do? Yeah.
I did. We played softball like last week, and I was like, I just want to get through the softball game without getting hurt, because if I
God, that would
get
suck.
hurt playing softball,
That
I'd
would
be pissed
suck.
off.
Oh my God.
I have a group of guys that I'll get together and play basketball with, like
Yeah.
pick up, at school, and they've been playing all summer, like on Wednesday nights, but I haven't been going because I've been paused it because that's my fear too. Is
I don't play basketball anyway at age 44, because I just know like the only way it ends is with a blown out knee.
oh, yeah, I know. I've already a year and a half ago I cracked a rib, which is it hurts a lot more.
Did you crack it, or did someone crack it for you with an elbow?
Well, it was one of those got tangled up with somebody else going after a loose ball, and then the way I fell. So it was a little bit of my own clumsiness.
I've broken a rib.
Yeah.
I did it skiing. It hurts.
That hurts.
And there's nothing you can do.
Nope.
You just sit there.
You're just stuck with it and it takes a long time to start to feel better.
Yeah.
But yeah, I paused that, and then once school starts up, that picks up. They play like twice a week in the mornings, and I love doing it, but I keep thinking about, especially come like September.
Yeah.
That's just so risky to. At that point, if you hurt yourself with anything,
There's no coming back.
Yeah, so I'm gonna have to wait on that until after.
When you're running, are you like being extra cautious now, kind of like where you're running, and like kind of if let's say it's raining outside, are you just like making sure like, okay, I want to really put my caution gears on today, and like, are you just being extra careful because if you do get injured now, like you're screwed at this point. Yeah,
you really kind of are, and I think that's what, like I said earlier, I run the same route all the time, so that familiarity is there where I kind of know spots that I have to be mindful of and be careful. But it's also it's paying attention to like when anything starts to feel funny or doesn't feel right.
Listening to your body.
Yeah. If I start to pick up on something like that, then which thankfully, again, knock on whatever this is behind me, that hasn't been an issue yet. But I also know that as the miles start to get longer on some of these runs, then that's something to be on the lookout for.
All right, so we're back on CHGO Marathon, talking about kind of injuries. I have an interesting story about a suggested guest. One of my good friends, Lindsay, popped up in my DMs and introduced me to, I'm not a wrestling fan, so I wasn't quite familiar with her, but Megan Morant, who is a interviewer on WWE.
Okay.
I guess she's pretty big. She has a good following. One of our producers, Lawrence Benedetto, is a big fan. She's an 11-time marathoner.
Oh, okay.
And, a person of some repute. And Lindsay was like, you would have a great time talking to her. I think she's running the Chicago Marathon. And so she introduced us on this thing. Well, Megan chimed in. She says, well, I would normally run it, but I'm actually donating a kidney. this year, and it's going to knock me out of the Chicago Marathon.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
So she actually did it last week. I think it was to like the wife of, not even like anyone that's particularly close to her, but it's like maybe the wife of a coworker. And so I said, hey, good luck with it. Love to talk to you at some point, particularly if you decide like you think you can recover and run this Chicago Marathon. So we've been in contact, and we'll see what goes down. But pretty cool story there.
Well, if she donates a kidney and still runs it, then I have no excuse. For
I was just about to say, I'm like, I feel like crap then. Oh my God.
I can't complain about anything.
Mind over matter. Holy crap.
Yeah, I also want to give a shout out to one of our listeners. Last week we talked about shoes, and I needed a new pair of shoes because my Asics GT 2000s are on the last legs. I also stink to high heaven. Especially after Saturday. But one of the ones that Kofuzi recommended was a Saucony Triumph 20, and Risky Biscuits, Mr. A, popped up and said, get this in my mentions, and said, get the Saucony Triumph 20. You can pick them up on sale for under $100 at the moment. They are the best daily trainer I've ever had. I used to be an A6 GT 2000 man myself. If you are feeling like you need a speed shoe too, the Adizero Adios 8 are phenomenal. Love those. So I actually went out. I popped up on Amazon, and he was right. The Saucony Triumph 20s, which started off at 160, are down to like 75, 85, depending on which colorway you get.
Okay.
So I popped up those. It turns out my dad has been wearing Saucony Triumphs forever. And he was like all about him. He runs a little bit. He's not, he's like 70 years old, so he's not like a marathon runner or anything, but he does run and get out there. So I picked him up, and I've only taken him out once yesterday morning, and I loved him. I mean, there's a ton of foam in the back, and I have never run with this much foam. You can,
I gotta check
it
this
out.
I'm due for new shoes, so.
So yeah, I was speedy. I felt good. I mean, there's nothing really better than taking a new pair of shoes out for a spin.
Right.
And I usually run like 40. I usually run 5 miles in like the 47, 48 area, and I was in at like 46:20 yesterday. So I don't know if that'll keep up, but I felt good. I mean, I did feel like with my old shoes, I was at a point where I was feeling a little bit more pain than I probably should have in there. So I definitely needed a pair. And I think I made the right decision. I really appreciate Risky Biscuits making that recommendation.
When I know last week we were talking about listen, when do you need to get a new pair of shoes? And you got to listen to your body. And I think one of the big things we were talking about earlier before the show with those shoes is there's a lot of foam that you really like on it. And I think especially if you have like ankle or foot issues or even knee issues, like having like a big amount of foam in your shoe, that way your weight can then kind of like foam, like you can form your shape of your foot. It feels
great. It feels great when you're running, but when you are walking, you almost feel like a little bit like elevated, like platform.
But when you're running, because you like having all that extra weight on your feet, like I think that's the type of shoe that I personally would want, because I want the most amount of support in my feet. Especially, I feel like the longer you go, I need foam and
the support on the top is very they're very form fitting.
No, I'm gonna look into that.
It's almost like with a lot of shoes, I'm lazy. I don't untie my shoes, and I do the thing where you
I don't either.
take off the shoe.
Yeah,
you can't do that with these. Like you have to, but it's a good because it's very form fitting. So, and I'll say the one thing that Amazon has is the free try on for 7 days. So you could run on these on 7 days, decide you don't like them, and
send them back.
That's what I love, because I'm so picky about, if I'm spending the money to buy a good running shoe, like I need to try it on. I want to like take it for a spin or whatever. Like that Amazon thing, that is brilliant. And I love that.
That's really great. So I kind of almost wonder, it's like, oh, can I get I haven't looked, can I get a pair of like Nike Vaporflies, like the $300 shoes? And then I'm sure people do that. Like
wear them around for a few days. And
there's a little loophole.
I mean, I worked at Sports Authority back in the day, and people used to do that all the time. Just bring back shoes and wear them. Like, I don't know. So I'm definitely into the running shoes now, because
So one thing I've had recommended to me, and I haven't tried this yet, is to get your normal shoe size, to get your running shoes maybe half a size bigger.
I haven't heard that.
I've been told that for especially like marathon, like long distances, because as you're running, as your feet swell a little bit, like having that extra space in the shoe. I haven't tried that myself, so I was curious if
I haven't heard that, but that's probably something worth looking into. It also just kind of makes me nervous though too, having a little extra room and getting the blisters.
That's a little bit of why I haven't done it yet. Is
make sure you just have like the right socks and
I
don't know.
Yeah, maybe it's more of a socks thing, but I was
but that's so much like what makes me nervous about the marathon is just the actual being out there for 26 miles, what changes you have in your body, not only with appetite, fuel,
sweating.
Yeah. I mean, like we've talked about that. We joked about the chafing, but like that, I feel like you can get past. To me, it's like just having sweat on your shirt. Like after 6 miles, your shirt gets waterlogged and it just starts hanging. It sucks.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Would you guys be one of those people to like you just eventually just take your shirt off and like screw it? Or?
No, but you have to have your bib on though, right? Like, so what do you do with the bib?
How you do that?
See, I didn't.
Because my wife was like, "Do you want me to bring out different shirts for you?" I'm like, "Well, it's probably not the worst idea in the world, but I don't."
Then you have to switch the bib, and
there's just no way.
Oh, I didn't think about that.
I do remember I ran the half marathon last year. It was in September, so and it wasn't like super hot that day, but I was by the end of that. I mean, my shirt was my shorts, everything. I was just drenched. So that is something that like you're kind of carrying that the whole time,
right?
Because it doesn't. I don't have to run long, and I've got a pretty good sweat going. So
absolutely.
So yeah, you've got that where you're sort of carrying that extra weight, and
it's like trying out all these different shirts to find out the right ones. Like these like high knit, the high tech shirts aren't cheap.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and that's another part of it too is how much money do you want to spend on some of those kinds of things?
I like spending money. You don't have to twist my arm to do that, but
yeah. I mean, I've had people recommend like special socks that are like $20 a pair, and I haven't gotten into anything like that.
I did buy 3 pairs of socks for like $36. They're nice and thin. Of course, now I only have 5 socks left somehow, like a week in owning them.
That's what I'm saying. I'm like, at the end of the day, it's all going to get worn down. Like it's you could buy a $40 pair of socks and eventually they're going to get probably destroyed because you're running and training so much. That's why I'm like, I don't know. I'm trying to find like a happy medium of everything.
Like I was saying before, I'm getting into running shoes because I here at CHGO, everyone's into basketball shoes.
Right.
Like, those are pricey and you can't get them. Like I got the sneakers app and I don't think I've won 1 pair of Jordans and it was like, and I'd end up being like a pair of Jordans nobody wanted. And I thought I was cool because I won them. And I haven't worn them yet because I'm like, well, I don't know if these are cool or not. So they're in my closet. But with running shoes, they're all available. Like I love these colors. Like I could wear these things all day long. I did think on the I thought they would be a little closer to the Chicago flag. They're a little bit in person. They're a little bit more Smurfy blue.
Right, that blue is a little lighter.
So like you can kind of see, but I mean, it's pretty close to our graphic. So, but I don't think this is going to be the last pair of shoes I buy before the marathon too. So I'm gonna have to try some more things out.
Yeah, test some stuff out.
If any equipment reps are listening to this and want to send me some shoes, hit me up.
Yeah.
I won't say no.
We'll take whatever you...
Jared and Sarah, too.
Yeah. I'm willing to try things out and say nice things about them.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
All right, so this Saturday, I'm on the schedule for 12 miles. Saturday after that, 13 miles. So that's half marathon, more or less.
This Saturday?
12 this Saturday, 13 the Saturday after. Then I think it goes back down to 10, and then it climbs again to 15 and 16. So this is not going to be any joke. We touched upon it on the top of the show, Jared. But what are you thinking about as we get into these double-digit runs, and how are you preparing for them, I guess, both from a strategic standpoint and just from a mental standpoint?
So prepping for those, I've realized I think about 10 miles I can do with, like, I'll bring a bottle of like body armor that I'll drink that as I'm going. And then there's some water fountains along the route that I take, and I'll fill it up with water. Yeah. Really helps. That and porta potties too. find where your porta potties are. But I can do 10 miles just with that.
Mm-hmm.
But then as we get into 12, 13, that's when I need to start trying some of like the gel packs and those kinds of things. I did do that when I ran the half marathon. I had one that about 8 miles in, down the hatch. So this is when I will start playing around with some of those just to see what I like and what helps. So strategy wise, I can't get away with not carrying water with me anymore.
Yeah.
Or at least, really shouldn't. And so there's that. And then, those, I don't even know what they call them, but the goo that that stuff. And then also really starting to be more mindful of, okay, tomorrow I'm running 12 miles. What does that mean I need to do today as far as how I'm eating, water that I'm taking in, and just also like stretching. I didn't really think about this until I started getting into this, is like stretching the day before and just kind of getting loose the day before makes a big difference, so that you're
absolutely,
you're feeling better when you wake up the next morning and it's time to go out and run a long distance. So yeah, for me too, this Saturday is, it's 12 miles. So it's time to, you can't just pop up and do that.
Absolutely. I've already kind of made a pledge the next couple of weeks. I may not drink anything, like drink any alcohol, just maybe get a little clear. August, I've got a couple of friends coming to town. I know that there's going to be, got the CHGO golf outing. I know that I'm going to be drinking Goose Island that day.
Goose Island. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what's your thought on that though? With like, when you have like a weekend where it's like, you enjoy to have a beer, you like drinking, and it's, so it's like, drinking's not good for you. Like at the end of the day, it's going to cause inflammation. It's going to make you feel tired. It's going to make you bloated.
I have been doing it on the opposite at the end of I've been trying to contain it to Saturday nights. Hasn't worked exactly. We talk about vacation, like how are you going to be out like at a lake and not drink beer, right?
It's hard.
But I mean, I did notice like I was going down in weight, and then I had a hiccup for a month, or for a week or week and a half. And, so like I said, I do want to cut a little bit more weight before we go. It's going to have to happen. So, so I'm definitely doing that. I'm still trying to figure out routes, like where I want to go. I did the Arboretum 2 weeks ago. That's like 8-mile loop. I don't really like doing like a loop more than once. I know a lot of people just kind of say, all right, I'll do 6 miles around my house twice or 2.5 times. I don't love it.
Either. Yeah.
I mean, particularly because if I do have to go to my, I don't want to be running to my house to use the bathroom or whatever like that.
You don't want to interrupt the run that, by like going into the house, because it's,
So I'm thinking about going out to Waterfall Glen and training with Kara for some of these longer runs, which I'm part of their training program. They start a little later though, so I'm not sure. I'm gonna have to just figure something out. It's Tuesday now, so we got a few days. But as the 20 milers, I'm definitely doing like the Kara 20 miler for that on the lakefront and getting into that. So. And again, I'm trying to figure out, I've been doing gels. I did one gel pack before the Big Ten one, which is great. So I definitely recommend those. I don't think you can go wrong. Just go buy a bunch from Dick Pond or
just try and see what
absolutely.
Works.
Yeah. I think people make a little bit, like, oh, does this affect my stomach or whatever? Like, I think if you don't have a finicky stomach, which I don't think you do.
I'm not too worried about that. I think it's more the flavor. It's, finding something that, but even that
to me is getting
them
open.
Picky. Yeah.
It's not easy. I have kind of like I sometimes kind of have like a gag reflex. I don't do well at the dentist. So like sometimes like trying to rip
it
them
off
up
with your,
I don't do well with that. So, so I've tried some of the gummies. I've tried some of the gel packs. Both have done fine. So
now, are you speaking of carrying water?
I did buy a backpack.
Okay. See, that's another thing. I'm like, do I need to, cause I've just been like, I'll just hold it.
Yeah.
Which
I did have a handheld one, which was like $30. I don't think it brings enough water.
Yeah.
It's like, all right, I just wasted $30.
Well, I've debated about the ones that you can actually have like attached to you somehow, or I've got my friend Jordan Bastian, who some listeners might know. He's the Cubs writer for MLB.com. He's had one that he said actually kind of like strapped around his hand.
I have that one, and it's like 16 ounces, but once it's gone, then you have to find some place to refill it. Right. Which, for a Cara run is great because they do have water out there on the course for you, but
depending on where you're running, you might not have access to to refill the water.
So it's gonna be fun though. I mean, I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to figuring out the challenge of it. I do like seeing the mileage counter on my Nike Run app go up. That's fun, a lot of fun to see. Yeah. We've talked that we're kind of tech and stats nerds, so I mean, it's been a great summer so far. I'm really enjoying it so far. My body feels good. I feel like this last week was good because it was a pullback week. I feel like I'm a little bit recharged. That big 10K thing was recharging because you're out around people and hanging out with Sarah and Nick was a lot of fun. So we may have to do a run ourselves together. So we figure something out. You just have to get up a little earlier.
I know. I got to get up earlier, and I think you're faster than I am. So
that's all right. I mean,
Kevin's a fast runner. He has a good pace on him.
So that's
but that's also another thing is figuring out the marathon pace because I'm not going to be running at 9 miles a minute for the marathon.
No.
I think my pace for the half it ended up being like a 10:45 average. So, some that are quicker than others, but that's, I think, is probably going to be around where I'm at. So because I've had a couple of people, I've got a friend who he runs does a 13-mile run every Wednesday.
Okay.
So, and he's like, hey, when you get some of these longer runs, if you need somebody to run with, he's offered to come with me. But that's always my answer is like, that sounds great. But the question is, am I going to be too slow for you?
It's fine. Like I was running with Sarah, right? Like at some point I just kind of, I just pulled away at some point. I don't think Sarah was offended, or maybe she was. I don't know.
No, not at all. And that's honestly, that's been my biggest thing with like, I've had friends where like they were talking to me saying like, oh my God, you're doing the 10K and blah, blah, blah. Like, I don't know if I could do that. And my biggest thing and my whole attitude has been, and this goes with like every marathon or like any little 10K or 5K is like, it's not a race and no one thinks it's a race unless you're like the person that wants to get first place, but those people are crazy. But no, it's like you're just the fact that you're even just like doing it and the fact that you complete it is like the biggest accomplishment, and everybody's bodies are different. It doesn't matter the age or the weight, like everybody's going to do their own thing. And it's like I have my own pace, you have your own pace.
And if the person pulls ahead of you, all right, you'll see them 12 minutes after you finish.
It's not no one should ever feel embarrassed or offended for that, because it's like you just being there and you just doing it, like that's all the justification you need. Like this isn't a race. Like everyone trained differently too. So it's just do what your body tells you to do and do what you're comfortable with. And I mean, everyone does.
I think some of it though is like, okay, I mean, we're talking about like bigger distance. It's like, okay, well, what happens if I do have to walk for an extended time? Like that's where it gets a little scary.
And I feel like one thing with the marathon, I talked to my brother with this too, because he's done a couple marathons, and he was like, I mean, I walked once, and he was like, in the beginning, like he was like mad at himself for it, but then he was like, you know what? It's like if he kept running, he would have been hurt, or like sometimes you need to just walk a little bit and then just like then recharge and then continue running. Like it's okay to stop for a bit. It's okay. You're running a lot of miles. It's a lot to do. It's okay.
81, 82 more days. I'm looking forward to it. So, all right. So we have a good episode coming up next week. Heidi Stevens, the Tribune News Service columnist, is going to be in here talking about her journey. She's overcome some health issues in recent years, and for her to be doing it at age 48 is a big deal. And she's a first timer too. So she has a great story to share. Looking forward to that. And again, if you're enjoying CHGO Marathon, make sure you're checking us out on Twitter and engaging with us there. Hoping to put together maybe some sort of fun run at some point, maybe centered around a post-run round at the Goose Island Pub. So
it'll be a lot of fun.
Do that as it gets closer. And also talked with Kofuzi maybe about meeting up. The Saturday before the race, they do like a shakeout run where they meet at the Bean and then like run up to Lou Malnati's or something. So see how that all works. But Till then, we appreciate you listening to the CHGO Marathon Podcast. Good luck in your training and your long mileage ahead. And we'll see you back here next time.